Hi kids, we meet again in chapter 7 gaseous exchange. Subtopic 7.2 breathing cycle. And in our syllabus this time, I'm going to introduce to you the definition of a number of terms related to a type of graph that helps us identify the health of our lungs. So let me go straight to the lung test. The lung test is called a spirometry test, and the apparatus used is a spirometer. The apparatus in this girl's mouth, this is a spirometer where she will blow into the apparatus and data will be collected via this computer to produce a certain graph. So what the spirometer does is it will measure the volume of air inspired, that is inhaled, and expired, that is exhaled. So why would we want to measure these volumes? By measuring these volumes, we are able to determine how well the lungs are functioning. From the spirometry test, the computer will print out a graph called the spirometry trace. The graph will look like this. From this graph, doctors can determine whether the patient has a healthy or unhealthy lung. If unhealthy, they can help identify conditions such as asthma, emphysema, pulmonary fibrosis, cystic fibrosis, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, short form COPD. Now for our STPM syllabus, you do not have to really memorize all this, but at least have a basic knowledge of what these conditions are. So I will now introduce a little bit about each of these diseases. We start with the general one called COPD. It is actually a collection of lung diseases that cause difficulty in breathing. Okay, why a patient will have difficulty to breathe is basically because their airways, that is the bronchus or the bronchioles, begin to narrow. Now why would the airways narrow? There are many reasons, some of which are chemicals, dust, pollution, and of course smoking. So any breathlessness can be categorized as chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. But if we go into more detail, then we have specific diseases such as asthma. This is a bronchiole. Here is the alveolus. This is of a normal patient. So you can see the airway here is big. Therefore, gas can go in and diffuse out easily. Now, a person who has asthma tends to have a slightly narrow bronchiole. Okay, and this naturally is going to make air exchange less efficient. Right? But in this diagram here is when the asthmatic patient is having what is known as an asthmatic attack. So you can see in an asthmatic attack, the muscles here at the bronchioles have begun to constrict, completely narrowing the bronchiole, and you can see the alveolus here seems expanded because the air from the alveolus cannot be transported out. So asthma is actually contraction in the bronchi of the lungs. Bronchi is plural of bronchus, okay, causing a difficulty to breathe, and this is mainly due to an allergic reaction to dust, to air pollution. So asthma is an example of COPD. Next we see emphysema. This is a diagram of a healthy alveolus. But this is an alveoli of a patient who is suffering from emphysema. So you can see that it is having a smaller surface area because it is more narrow, and the shape, the structure of the alveolus is damaged. So naturally gas exchange is limited. So in emphysema, the alveoli becomes damaged, causing the patient to be unable to breathe, breathlessness, and this is due to smoking. So this emphysema is also another example of COPD. We move on to the fourth condition known as pulmonary fibrosis. In pulmonary fibrosis, the lung tissues become damaged, as you can see in the diagram. This diagram shows a healthy lung where the tissues surrounding the alveolus are clear. Here, the tissues surrounding the alveolus, you can see, are fibrous. Okay, they are like strings around it, and this also damages the alveolus. So, when the lung tissues are damaged, the lungs find difficulty to work efficiently, and therefore the patient will have progressively shortness of breath. Okay, so that means the shortness of breath is that they are unable to breathe normally, but this is a progressive disease. That means slowly their lungs begin to weaken. Now this happens because of an autoimmune disorder. We study this later under the chapter on immunity, but briefly, an autoimmune disorder is when the body starts to attack itself. Okay, but another example of pulmonary fibrosis is due to viral or bacterial infections, such as in a disease known as tuberculosis. Now even COVID-19, okay, which is caused by a viral infection, can cause pulmonary fibrosis. Now we look at the final condition known as cystic fibrosis. This diagram shows us the bronchus of a healthy individual, and this is a bronchus of a patient with cystic fibrosis. What you see, the green color here, is actually thick mucus produced by these patients. It is an abnormally thick mucus that will block the bronchi, preventing air from moving, and on top of that, it promotes infections. So patients with cystic fibrosis not only have difficulty in breathing, but they will very frequently have lung infection. Now the ability to produce this thick mucus is due to a genetic disorder. So now you are familiar with each one of these conditions. Okay, so a patient with any one of these conditions will not show a spirometry trace like this. Their graph will either show shorter peaks, or the peaks may be further apart. Okay, now what these peaks actually show is us inhaling and exhaling normally. These parts of the graph is when we are breathing normal. Okay, this part of the graph here, which is going down, is when we do a deep exhalation. We try to exhale everything out. Okay, and this part of the graph is when we do a deep inhalation. Okay, so each shape of this graph has specific labels. So let me introduce the labels to you. The first label will be what we call as a tidal volume, short form TV. Okay, this short form is for you to do revision, not for you to write in exam. So the tidal volume is when you are doing normal breathing. Okay, it is the amount of air which enters the lungs during normal inhalation when you are at rest. So this will be the small repetitive graphs, okay, where if we measure the height of the graph, that will indicate tidal volume. Okay, but you see, we can also take an extremely deep breath. Okay, so that deep breath that we take, it's called the inspiratory capacity. That is the greatest volume of air that can be inhaled into the lungs, the maximum breath you can take. So you see, these parts of the graph is the tidal volume, but when you take a deep breath, the graph can go higher. So that will be the inspiratory capacity. So the height of this graph is the inspiratory capacity. So when we take a normal breath, that is known as the tidal volume, and when we take a deep breath, that is known as the inspiratory capacity. So the extra breath that we are taking, the additional amount of air that can be inhaled into the lungs after a normal inhalation is what we call as the inspiratory reserve volume. Okay, so again I use the same graph where you see the normal peaks are the tidal volume and the taller peak is the inspiratory capacity. Okay, so if we minus the tidal volume, this green here is the additional amount of air which we call the inspiratory reserve volume. So the formula will be inspiratory capacity equals to, the black space here is the tidal volume plus the inspiratory reserve volume. Okay, it's not a very complicated formula. As long as you remember the shapes of the graph, you can figure out the formula. Just like how we can take a deep breath, we can also exhale maximum. Okay, so the greatest volume of air that can be exhaled out of the lungs is called the expiratory capacity. Okay, so you know this part is the tidal volume and this part is the inspiratory capacity. Okay, but when the graph goes down to the bottom, that becomes the expiratory capacity. When we do a normal exhale, that is still a tidal volume. But when you do an expiratory capacity, you are going to exhale extra. So the expiratory reserve volume is the additional amount of air that can be exhaled out of the lungs after you have done your normal exhalation. So let's look at the graph here. Okay, now you know your tidal volume and your expiratory capacity. Okay, but this part here is the extra. This green here is the extra you are exhaling. So that is the expiratory reserve volume. So once again, the formula is expiratory capacity will be the sum of tidal volume and the expiratory reserve volume. So what is vital capacity? Vital capacity is the maximum amount of air that can be expelled from your lungs after a maximum inhalation. Okay, so over here, again I use the same graph. You have the tidal volume, inspiratory capacity and expiratory capacity. So vital capacity is actually, when we say maximum amount of air, it is from the peak of the inspiratory capacity to the bottom of the expiratory capacity. So that is the maximum amount of air. Okay, now I've done these yellow lines to remind you that above this yellow line is the inspiratory reserve volume. Between the yellow line is the tidal volume. Below the yellow line is the expiratory reserve volume. Okay, so the vital capacity, as I mentioned, is from the top peak to the bottom. So as a formula, we have a number of formulas. Vital capacity can be inspiratory capacity, okay, until the bottom yellow line, plus the expiratory reserve volume. Or vital capacity can be the whole of the expiratory capacity plus the inspiratory reserve volume. Or the third version of the formula can be inspiratory reserve volume plus tidal volume plus expiratory reserve volume. Okay, now these formulas are not necessarily for calculation purpose, but it is more for objective questions when they give definition of the vital capacity or any other volumes, because they can choose to give you definition by the explanation up here, or they can use definition based on formula. Okay, we move on. Next, we talk about total lung capacity. That is the total amount of air in the lungs after you have done maximal inspiration. That means after you take a deep breath, we are determining how much air is there from your nostril right into your alveolus. This is different from inspiratory capacity. Inspiratory capacity involves maximum inspiration, but we are measuring how much air from outside entered your lungs. Total lung capacity is measuring how much air is in your lungs. Okay, later I will show you based on the graph, and then you will be more clear. Finally, we look at residual volume. Residual volume is the amount of air that remains in your lungs after you have done a maximum expiration. This is not the same as expiratory capacity. Expiratory capacity is the volume of air that leaves your body when you exhale. But residual volume is the amount of air still in your lungs after you have done maximum expiration. So formula wise, residual volume is actually total lung capacity minus vital capacity. So you see, our lungs can contain 5 liters of air. But when we do maximum exhaling, we are not able to exhale 5 liters. There will still be air in our trachea, in our bronchus and our bronchioles. So that balanced air that stays is the residual volume. So let's now have a look based on a graph. This is a simpler graph. Okay, but the spirometry trace that I showed you earlier has been used in STPM questions. Okay, so it is also important to be able to recognize parts of the graph, such as this part here when you are breathing normally, this part here when you are taking a deep breath, inhaling a deep breath, and this part when you are exhaling maximum. Okay. So over here you see they have given us the volume. So during exam they can ask you to measure and calculate. So if you see for the tidal volume, from 2.5 liters it goes up to 3 liters. That means the tidal volume itself is 3.0 minus 2.5, that makes 0.5 liters. Now this part of the graph, you are taking a deep breath. So the graph goes up to 5 liters. So from the base right up to 5 liter, this is actually the inspiratory capacity. So inspiratory capacity, if we want to measure, is 5 liters minus 2.5 liters. That will be 2.5 liters. So that means originally you can inhale 0.5 liter. But if you really want to force yourself to inhale, you can inhale an extra of 2 liters. That extra is the inspiratory reserve volume. Just like you can force yourself to inhale, you can also force yourself to exhale. Okay, now if we measure the maximum exhale, okay, that is from 3 down to 1.25. Okay, so that will be your expiratory capacity. It's not labeled in the graph here. Okay, but if we minus the expiratory capacity from the tidal volume, then it is 2.5 minus 1.25, which makes the expiratory reserve volume. Okay, so from this maximum to this minimum, that makes the vital capacity. So if we want to calculate vital capacity, it will be 5 liters minus 1.25 liters. Now you don't memorize these numbers because in exam they may give you a spirometry trace of a healthy person, or they may give you of an unhealthy person. So the numbers will change. So you just need to know how to identify and calculate. Now I continue. Okay, you see the vital capacity is 5 minus 1.25 liters, but the total lung capacity is 5 liters. So that means there is a balanced air that is in the lungs and not being exchanged with the atmosphere. So that is known as the residual volume, that is 1.25 liters. So this is how we will interpret the spirometry trace. So I hope with that you understand the meaning of tidal volume, vital capacity, total lung capacity, inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume, and residual volume. So I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.